Hey everyone, how are you? My name is Emily Todd. I am from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and we are here to talk about our Care for My Drinking Water project.
And I'm Ashley Mark. I am a community engagement coordinator with the state as well. So as we mentioned, we both work with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. We work specifically in the Environmental Health Bureau, which on the next slide we'll talk a little bit more about. But generally, our mission is to protect the health of Michigan residents. We call ourselves Michiganders, and we do so by working to reduce and prevent exposure to environmental hazards where we live, work, and play.
So our bureau has several health programs you can see up there. All of them are working to address exposure to health hazards from environmental health sources like air, food, soil, things in the workplace, the community, your home, and your drinking water. So our project falls into this program that we have highlighted in green here, the Public Health Drinking Water Program. So the project that we're talking about today, the Care for My Drinking Water project, was developed with the purpose of increasing knowledge and awareness about drinking water and how the things that kind of come into it might impact your health. And what we do is we encourage residents to take action to prevent potential exposures. So something that's been really interesting for me today is learning that in various states around our country, private well owners are or are not responsible for maintaining their own water. In Michigan, they are totally responsible for their private well system, minus when the well actually goes in. So some counties have point of sale requirements, but it kind of depends on where you live. So we have 30% of residents who have a private well. So we have a large chunk of people that we're trying to educate to take care of their water. Okay, so our project has 5 important components that we're going to talk through today. You can see them right up here. So research, evaluation, community engagement, health ed and communication, outreach, and marketing. First, we're going to talk through our needs assessment. So to do that and kind of build the base for our project, what we did was this list of things. So we did this collaboration analysis. Basically what that was is as a team, we sorted through everything and we looked through a bunch of organizations throughout the state and we said, who has direct interest in drinking water? Who has relationships within our communities with people who work with drinking water, things like that. Then we went out and we talked to those people and we said, what do you do? Who do you talk to about drinking water? And we tried to figure out what is already in place for drinking water activities, where are gaps in drinking water activities, and we gained insight on the knowledge that's already out there. What do people already know? What are attitudes surrounding drinking water? Maybe people are like, I already know that. Please don't tell me more. Or maybe people are like, I know nothing about that. Please tell me all the things. And we gained some feedback to put together a survey that we're going to talk about a little later. We also did some focus groups with people around the state. We worked with people on public water supply. We needed to gain knowledge from those folks as well. And also with people who are on private residential wells. And then finally, we took all of that information and we put it into our survey that Ashley is going to talk about now.
All right, so as Emily said, I'm going to talk about our survey. So this was open to participants between July 28th of 2021 and August 11th. So it was only open for about 2 weeks. We had a bit more than 1,000 participants, so we were pretty content with that response rate. The aim of the survey was to understand Michiganders' knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors around drinking water. So knowing what we learned from our literature review, we had a general idea of what to expect, but we really wanted to verify and confirm that what we were seeing in this national literature base was what was actually also happening in our state of Michigan. Okay, so the survey had 5 sections. They covered the topics of demographics, household drinking water, private well specific information, public water supply specific information, drinking water testing, and best practices. So for us, those things or best practices refers to things like flushing your pipes and cleaning your faucet aerators. The survey was conducted in one wave, so we largely recruited just through word of mouth and in collaboration with other state agencies. The survey was available both online and in print copies, and we offered the opportunity to complete that survey in Spanish, Arabic, or English. So moving into some of the results, these are focused specifically on those questions we asked just to our private well owners. So 47% of the private well owners that were surveyed were aware of testing recommendations or guidelines in their area. So we were fairly pleased with that result. We also found that 82% of private well owners surveyed either agreed or strongly agreed that as a private well owner, they are responsible for making sure their water is safe to drink. And this was a really encouraging number for us because that first step of really completing maintenance and testing practices is that people recognize their responsibility to do that. And then thirdly, 37% of private well owners that were surveyed had never inspected their well system to assess its condition. So we look at this statistic next to that 82% statistic, and they're a little contradictory. People understand that they should be doing these things, but they aren't actually doing them. So that for us raised a red flag of there needs to be some sort of response in terms of education and engagement to make people feel confident in carrying out those behaviors. And many of the activities we're going to talk about in this presentation were in direct response to that statistic. We also asked some specific questions about private well water testing. 58% of private well owners had not had their water tested for any contaminants in the past 3 years, which was discouraging but not surprising for us. Those who had not tested said that their reasoning was not knowing how to test, thinking their water was fine, and not knowing what to test for. So these were some additional gaps that we strived to address in our different educational activities that we'll be talking about.
Okay, so additionally from this survey, we developed some project goals. And so you can read them on the screen, I won't read them to you, but we use kind of a metaphorical pyramid. So our first goal was to create a base for people to have just like a bottom educational layer for what they need to learn about their drinking water. And that is basically what is your water supply type and the tips to maintain it. And so we wanted people to know, do you have a well or are you on public water supply? And then from there, how do you keep that water in the best quality that you can? And so those are the 5 that you see on your screen. And our other 2 goals stemmed from if you're on a private residential well, how do you maintain that system? And then if you are on a public water supply, how do you keep your water maintained from there? Understanding that the public water supply is going to do its best to keep that water free of contaminants, but if you want to take further steps, you can do so.
All right, the most fun slide we have here, so enjoy it while it's up. This is our Care for My Drinking Water Youth Project. So this was a really exciting initiative to really educate the youth in our state, because if we can implement that education at a young age, we hope it will move forward with them throughout their lives. So we developed a really awesome animated video that walks through the process that water takes from the environment to our homes. We also developed activity books for different age groups. And then finally, we created these activity kits, which Emily is modeling here. We also have one out in the hallway. You can take a look at the components, but they contain an activity book, a bracelet making activity, stickers, bookmarks, colored pencils, probably forgetting something, but all sorts of fun stuff. I guess I'll share more about that in a second here. Okay, we also developed something we call our learning lessons. So these were a little bit more interactive opportunities to educate youth, primarily. Although I did do one of these EnviroScapes at a senior center a few weeks ago, and they also loved it. So these are interactive educational lessons that are really intended to educate and increase knowledge and awareness about environmental hazards, specifically related to drinking water. So one is our bracelet making activity. We also have an EnviroScape learning lesson. We brought our EnviroScape along. Again, that's in the hall. You can take a peek at it. And then we also have a book called Why Water's Worth It that we do story times with. And we also share with our organizations like libraries. So just some of our metrics with regards to those learning lessons. For the EnviroScape, we've done a lot of them. 77 in fiscal year 23, 110 in fiscal year 24, and then this is old metric, but 22 so far in fiscal year 25. It's probably beyond that now. For our activity bags, we started with 15,000 that we had assembled. We used those up rather quickly between November 23 and February 24, which is what's depicted in the map. And then we were able to get additional funding for those, so we've actually distributed many more, about almost 36,000, probably beyond that now, between September 24 and March 25. So we're really getting those out to our communities, again, mostly through like schools and libraries, and we have all sorts of people requesting them. We had some state representatives that ordered a bunch for something, so it's a really cool initiative we have. And then also our story times, we've completed several of those throughout the last few years.
Okay, so health education, I'm sure all of you are familiar with fact sheets and things like that. So in order to get that information out, that the goals and objectives that we talked about, we create a number of health ed materials for people to access. We collaborate with local, fellow state, and other regional organizations to create the materials that we have, and then our community engagement and outreach staff share these materials with the community throughout. We have 8 regions in the state of Michigan, and they take those out to activities and things that Ashley was just talking about. We also have examples of some of our materials on the MDHHS table out in the lobby, and then some photos of some of these things that we've created there too. And also all available on our website that is on this screen.
All right, so now we're going to shift gears into talking a little bit about our Well Assessed project. So this was developed really in direct response to those survey data that I shared earlier that really depicted this need for better education about well maintenance behaviors. So the Well Assessed project is an online survey that we developed. It walks well owners through a step-by-step inspection of their private well. It's not intended to be a formal inspection. We, of course, always encourage them to reach out to a registered well driller for that, but it's really meant as an educational tool for one, to get people out looking at their wellhead, just looking at the base and making sure there aren't like major gaping cracks or missing electrical conduits, things like that, that could be impacting their water quality. So they go onto this website. We have several different ways they can access it through our website. We have QR codes on fact sheets, things like that. So they go to this website and it walks them through a step-by-step inspection of their well in a survey format. They respond to the various questions, and then based on their responses, it auto-populates recommendations for them. So the first question might ask, go out to your wellhead, put your hand on the cap and wiggle it. Is it loose? And they say, yes, or it's like missing, then we'll give a recommendation on how to go about remedying that issue. And the same goes for all of the questions that we ask within that survey. We also offered, as an incentive for participation, a $20 Visa gift card to participants. So we hoped that that would encourage people to, again, participate in this important well-maintenance behavior. We later found that that was less of an incentive. People didn't seem to care about the gift card as much as we thought, and we still ended up having a lot of participation after removing that gift card as an incentive. The gift cards were funded through an EPA multi-purpose grant that lasted a few years.
So we found that the greatest amount of participation came from this well-assessed media campaign that we did. We worked with a media campaign agency, and we ran a small social media campaign just on Facebook and Instagram, targeting rural areas in Michigan. And we ran probably 3 or 4 specific social media posts directing people to the well-assessed assessment. And it reached almost 3 million people. So there was a giant jump that Ashley will show you in a moment in our well-assessed participation following this media campaign, which was fantastic.
Hopefully you could see this, but I'll walk you through it verbally. So this is a timeline of our well-assessed project. So it began in November of 2021. We started by engaging residents only in 2 counties in our state, Bay and Calhoun County. We worked closely with the local health departments there to really figure out and kind of pilot the program and see how it was going to work. We feared that we were going to have too many participants, and so that's why we started slow, and we later found that was not going to be an issue for us. So we expanded after realizing we weren't getting a ton of participation. We expanded to 3 additional counties, Eaton, Ingham, and Livingston, and these are all primarily rural counties in our state. And we still found that we had only had about 57 participants throughout that period. So we decided, let's just open it up to the whole state and see what happens. So that's what we did. And yet still, we were seeing very few participants in the project. In terms of engagement, we were really relying on just, our community engagement and outreach staff providing these resources at events in the community. We were attending plant sales for our conservation districts and trying to find those rural audiences as best as we could. But in April of 2024, we decided to launch the social media campaign after securing some funding for that. And we very quickly found that that was the way to reach residents. We had over 1,700 participants during that time period as the social media campaign was running. We did not promote the fact that we were providing gift cards through that, the social media campaign. So we know that was not an incentive. People were just getting the message and they were interested in participating. So that was really awesome to see. Let me see if I miss any important details. At the end, we've had about 1,851 total participants, and that was between November of 21 and October 31st of 2024. So officially, our grant period has run out after several extensions. However, while we're not offering gift cards anymore because we don't have funding, the project is still available. People can still participate, and we still are having participation in the project. And we may seek opportunities to find other ways to get that information out moving forward. But the tool is still available on our website for people. And then this was one of, I think, our proudest moments was when we learned that we had participants in every county in our state in this project, which was a huge accomplishment for us. It really showed the reach of that social media campaign. So you can see that the darker blue colors are more participants and the lighter colors are fewer. So while we didn't have a ton in the Upper Peninsula, we still had participants in every county, which that tends to be a harder to reach group of people. All right, and then just some feedback from Well Assessed. So we had, of course, the survey that participants completed. We provided those recommendations. And then after they received recommendations, we asked them to participate in a brief feedback survey. So that's where we gained this information. The survey asked all sorts of questions, but this pulled 3 that we thought were important to mention. So we found, in terms of the ease of responding and recording their responses, like 99% of participants said it was very easy or easy to complete the actual survey. We also had 99% say it was easy or very easy to complete the inspection. So again, that was really encouraging that we had created an inspection process that was simple for people. The last question we asked was, do you think participating in this project changed how you think about your private well and well maintenance behaviors? And these results were a little bit not so exciting for us. We had 34% that had said yes, so that was great. We had 21% that said, I don't know. And then 45% said no. So at first we were, a little discouraged by this, but then we think back to originally that exploratory survey, and the perception was never the problem. The thought of people was never the problem. They always understood that they needed to do these things. So while we didn't have an impact on that perception or knowledge of folks, we did have an impact on behavior by having over nearly 2,000 people participate in that behavior of well maintenance. So in all, despite these results, we still think it was a successful program and achieved the outcome that we were really looking for.
Okay, the final thing that we wanted to talk about today is our statewide media campaign that gets some of our messaging out about all of our project goals. So we ran a media campaign from July of last summer until February of this year. We were able to run it in both urban and rural communities. You can see some examples of where we put those things up on the screen. We had gas station TV ads. We had bus, ads. Bus banners. We had social media campaigns. We did YouTube, radio, all kinds of things. We reached millions of people in a variety of avenues. And it increased our website traffic as well. So that was great. We are now in the process of doing our post-evaluation for this survey that we mentioned in the very beginning. So the hope is from all of these things that we can see that there was some kind of change from all of these things that we've implemented. And if there has been any new gaps, that we can now work in future years to start closing those. Okay, there's our contact information, and if you have any questions. Oh boy, okay. Okay, all right.
For the first question about the Michigan Groundwater Association, yes, we have partnered with them. We have a postcard that we developed in collaboration with them, which again is out in the hall on our little MDHHS table. So we developed a postcard that really kind of walks through those main well owner best practices. So testing, maintenance, I think it has filtration on there as well. But that was developed completely in conjunction with the Michigan Groundwater Association. And we also worked with them and I believe we also partnered with Eagle to send them out to mail those postcards out to new well owners as they were entered into our tracking system for wells called Well Logic. Oh, I don't have anything to click. The youth project funding is just our general funding for our bureau. We have several different types of funds like PFAS funds and lead funds. So we pull from those various funds to provide money for those We kind of use excess funds, wherever there's leftover money, we put towards those activity bags. Yeah. What's the average income for well owners?
What about do you target
well
owners based on contamination risk?
We originally, in terms of well assessed, originally we selected counties based on the number of wells they had there, the kind of the lack of litigation going on in those communities where it could be controversial to step into those to encourage well maintenance. We didn't necessarily look at contamination risk, just well owner kind of density in those communities. So we do kind of take note of that. And we, like Emily mentioned, we have community engagement coordinators that are actively engaging in the various counties across our state. So in counties where we know there are more well owners, we encourage those community engagement coordinators to really promote our well-related materials there. And then for the social media campaign, we also worked with the agency that's helping facilitate that to ensure that we're really pushing that message in those more rural communities. I do not think we asked them income in terms of demographics. I can't remember what data we actually asked, but I don't think, if we did, I do not have that data at the ready to provide that answer. The youth program, we have 2 different bags. The first is for grades K through 2, and the second bag is for grades 3 through 5, so it's primarily elementary school. We occasionally will use them for like 6th graders as well. Buy-in from schools, and we really rely on our community engagement coordinators to have those one-on-one conversations with schools. We did have a really awesome collaboration with one county in our state, Bay County, and we were able to go in and do our EnviroScape demonstration for every 2nd grader in the county, which was a huge success and a really awesome and time-consuming opportunity. But it was so rewarding, and they were able to distribute bags that way. So it's really kind of just a case by case. Yes, in terms of local health departments, again, we rely on community engagement coordinators. They interact very closely with local health departments within their region, and continuously update them about those new well owner resources we have. QR code stuff. State well database. I don't know that we have, in terms of the, I don't know, do you know?
I don't know that we have a well.
We have, oh, are we out of time? We have a database called WellLogic that tracks newer wells. We have not worked with them to include the Well Assess Project QR code at this point. Social media. We have, I don't know, do you want to talk on that?
Sure. We have encountered negative comments and false statements on social media posts. We have a communications department that runs our general MDHHS social media. So we personally do not address it, and actually MDHHS as a whole generally tends to just ignore that information. So that is mostly how it's addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.